this issue of climate change in a good way, in a very good way, and especially in getting out into the community and talking to people, helping to educate people, which is what this is about, and also helping to drive people toward action and giving them ideas about what they can do, how they can participate. And so it's been a real pleasure working with Pam over the last few years, now and again. And after Pam, Art Spooner from our environmental justice team will talk also about what we're doing. So please welcome Pam Tate.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's really nice to be here, and thanks, Jim, for asking me to come. And I'm just going to cover, I'm trying to think of how, yeah, I'll just kind of do it like this from the side. What I'm going to cover today is just a brief section on the impact the climate emergency is having. And a lot of you know some of this data, but I won't spend a lot of time on it because what I really want to spend the bulk of our time on is the second section, understanding what you can do about it as an individual, and also what you can do in this community to do something about this. So that's what we'll cover, and I'm trying to fit it into the time I've got. Jim is going to let me know if I'm running over. I like to start these presentations with this picture because it was taken from the space station, and it's the horizon of Earth. And that blue ribbon that you see is our atmosphere. And, you know, we don't have a limitless sky above us like it looks like we do when you look up. It's a very thin ribbon of atmosphere. And the sad thing is that we are dumping 110 million tons of pollution into that little thin layer every day. This is happening every day. So I want you to think about that and how do we reduce those emissions from going up there into the atmosphere. That's really what the bulk of this is going to be about. What can we do? Now, the greenhouse gases that are causing us all these problems, they come from all these different sectors. I won't go into detail about the sectors. But the interesting thing to me is that even though nationally, transportation is the major area that causes emissions in our country, look at Oak Park. This was a greenhouse gas inventory done just a few years ago in preparation for the Climate Ready Oak Park Climate Action Plan. And this inventory shows us an interesting thing, which is that between the 37% that is residential, coming from our houses and apartments, and the 33% coming from our commercial buildings, really, in our village, 70% of the emissions are coming from our buildings. Transportation is second, but if we want to tackle lowering emissions here in our village, our buildings are the heart of it. So I want you to see the reality of global warming. A lot of people say, oh, you know, it's just seasonal, it's not real. This is a picture of what's been happening on the planet as a whole. And if we looked out into 2023, that red bar would really go up because 2023 was the hottest year on record for the world. And 2024 promises to be even hotter than 2023. And we experience some of that here, but not like people do in certain parts of the world. We are still fortunate that we don't experience it quite as dramatically, but we will, and we already are. Now, this is one of the things that I've noticed really increasing, first through what we read and also what we saw last summer. I don't know, do you remember the orange sky of last summer? Well, these were fires that were happening in Canada. You know, it was like 1,000 miles away. But the entire upper Midwest and Northeast was just covered in the same red sky. And that has to do then with what we're breathing in. And so what does that mean? It means that when the planet is hotter, there are more fires, and they're more intense, and they last longer. Now, fortunately, in a way fortunately, the ocean absorbs over 90% of this extra heat that is coming from our emissions. But the bad part about that is that then as the ocean warms up, it causes a lot of changes in our weather patterns. And so the one thing I want to show you, this helped me understand why we have so much more flooding. When warm water evaporates from the ocean, there's more of it, and so the precipitation increases. And then the precipitation comes in intense periods, like we see sometimes. And then the water, the floods, return to the sea through mudslides and flooding and rivers washing into the sea with all the sediment. So the warmer the ocean, the more severe the weather becomes. But if the ocean had not been absorbing all these carbon emissions, we would be already in an unlivable situation. So what we've got to do is stop the emissions, obviously, right? This is the reality of where we are globally, that floods and extreme rainfall events, they're now occurring 4 times more often than they did just in 1980. And if you have the feeling that it's occurring a lot, you're right, because it's 4 times as often. And we have all of these 1 in 1,000 year experiences of downpours. There now been 12 of them, 22 of them in the last 12 years. So when we think that things are changing, believe me, they really are changing, and this really is an emergency. This is one picture I just had to show you. This is an example of what's called a rain bomb, where the precipitation is so severe that it ends up looking like a bomb. But what that is, that was taken in Montana, but it's actually a supercell storm with precipitation. And you can imagine the flooding that those people experienced. And I have to show you one picture of Chicago. Do you remember the summer of '21 when we had that incredible flooding in the city and here? Well, it was so bad that the manhole covers off of all the sewers blew open from all the water, and sewage was spewing into the streets in the city. I was there, and I experienced that, and I later learned why. I didn't know at the time that it was because the sewers in our tunnel system couldn't handle the downpour. So this is just to show you all of the different extreme weather examples. We could spend the entire time here of me showing you the devastation around the world, but then we'd all leave depressed. And so instead we're going to talk about what can be done. But I do want to say one more thing about impact before we get to solutions, and that is something that I think is very important, and that is the spread of infectious diseases. A lot of people are worried about this, but they don't understand the link to climate change. Because the air is warmer and the growing season and incubation season is longer, tropical diseases are on the move. That's why we see West Nile virus here now where we didn't some years back. It's because our Earth up here, even up near the Great Lakes, is warmer. And what's happening, therefore, is that infectious diseases have a better climate. They're doing better because our climate is warming. And so what we're doing really is we're disrupting our natural ecosystems through climate change, and that then affects our health. So it's not just weather, because a lot of people in the Midwest say, oh, I live here and I don't have to worry about sea level rise or fires. Well, we do have to worry about our health and flooding and drought and some of the other things. So it is an issue for us as well. And last, even the World Economic Forum knows it's a problem. 7 out of the 10 biggest risks to the global economy are from climate change, or they're related to climate change. And that means that the economy is suffering and will suffer, as are insurance companies, who then raise our rates to pay for all of the disasters they are covering. So it does affect us. So we do have solutions. And first I want to talk about the individual ones. And I don't know if you know this, but this was a surprise to me. I read in Electrify America, a wonderful website, by the way, Electrify America. And I have on the table over there a list of all the links to the resources I mention here. So you can pick up the information before you go. But Electrify America says that 40% of the decisions that are made at our kitchen table are going to lower, 40% of emissions could be lowered by the decisions that we make. In other words, what car we drive, what stove we use, what hot water heater we use, what furnace we use, all the big things that could limit our emissions as individuals. And of course there are other things you can do, but I'm going to focus on some of the big ones, the biggest ones. Why should you electrify your home or your apartment? Well, first of all, it's going to be a lot less expensive. I mean, don't forget that. It will help you in terms of cost. But we have to get to zero emissions in our country. We have to get to zero emissions, and we need to do it faster rather than slower. And the way to do that is we have to electrify all these machines that are being talked about in this quote from Rewiring America. We have to electrify 50 million machines a year for the next quarter century to get to zero emissions. That means our machines, our dryers, our washers, our hot water heaters, our cars. We have to make those changes ourselves in order to get to this goal. And there's no time this morning. If there were more time, I would go through this with you. But these are the big ones, the key home electrification projects. Solar energy, your car, your furnace and AC together, and your hot pump, your hot water heater. Those are the big ones that have the most emissions and can save the most if you make a change. I'm in the middle right now of electrifying an old home in Oak Park. And I'm taking it one step at a time, and I'm learning from my friends at the Oak Park Climate Action Network, which I'll talk about. And it's an expensive proposition, but it will pay off in the value of the house, in my monthly bills. So I'm in the middle of installing a heat pump, one of the biggest emitters. But there are rebates and tax credits available now for every one of these decisions that you need to make. And I'm not suggesting that you go out tomorrow and just suddenly replace everything. What you need to think about, though, is that when any of your appliances is reaching the end of its useful life for you, that is the time to replace it with electric. Just don't go out and buy another gas-powered machine for your house. And don't wait until your water heater breaks and then in a rush go out and buy a gas water heater, because it'll be there for 12 or 15 years and it'll just keep producing emissions. So replace it with electric. That's a really important step to take. So we'll hear more from Art, I think, about solar, rooftop and community solar. But if you have a good roof and you can go with rooftop solar, big, important decision to limit emissions. If you can't, or you live in a building where other people wouldn't agree to have solar panels, you can go to community solar, which is what I did, and you save about 20% on your electric bills, and you save on emissions as well. And Art will talk more about that. And then electrify your car. No question. I mean, 81% of all the emissions from vehicle miles traveled come from our personal cars. We can change that. And we live in a village that we hope will start to put in more chargers so that and they'll be helped by government funds so that we can have places to charge our cars other than a garage. And furthermore, the maintenance costs are really low. That's why auto dealers aren't wild about EVs, because they make all their money on service. So if your car needs less service, they make less money. So they don't tend to help you when you go to an auto dealer, because they want to sell you a gas-powered car where there's more service. But here's the interesting thing about tax credits. You can still get a tax credit at the federal level, and even here in Illinois, there's a rebate for buying an electric car. If you get in early, they run out of money every time so fast that it's hard for you to get the rebate. But Illinois has one as well. So there are incentives out there to get us to do this, little carrots to try to move us along. But here's the stick side, and that is that 17 states and growing are making decisions to phase out all fossil fuel car purchases by 2035. Illinois, we have legislation before the General Assembly right now to do that, and there are a lot of people fighting it. I hope we can pass it, but if we don't pass it this year, we'll pass it next year, being the bulldog that I am, that you described. We're going to work on passing it next year. But the idea is that people realize we've got to phase these things out. And so car manufacturers are hearing this, and they are producing more electric cars. And I believe that soon we'll be where Europe is. I mean, we're way behind Europe in terms of a transition to electrification. So we have a ways to go. Now, this is a great decision by the Biden administration. They just announced, I don't know if you saw this in the New York Times, but March 20th they announced that new regulations are designed to ensure that new cars and light trucks will be electric or hybrid by 2032. That's a big deal, just to have, and boy, are they getting flack for that, for making that decision, but it's really an important one. Now, the next thing is heat pumps. They are one of the biggest things that emit from our homes. And we don't have time this morning to describe all the rebates and everything that you can get for them. But what I do want to show you is an interesting thing that I didn't really understand them. And so what I found is that you can use a heat pump both for heating and air conditioning. So you don't have to buy a central air conditioning system. The heat pump does both things. It circulates heat from inside or outside. There's a circulatory way that it works. And you can read the details there for a minute. But it works the same except in reverse in the summer and the winter. And it just uses electricity. And there are cold water heat pumps now, cold weather heat pumps, excuse me, that will help you keep the temperature constant in your house down to 10 below zero. And if you even want it down further, there are some things you can add on to make it heated at 25 below zero. And so it is a very efficient system and will end up lowering your bills. So I'm going to skip the rebates one because of time. But then there's the heat pump water heater. It's the same principle as a heat pump, but it works that way to cool and heat your water. It's a circulatory system that works for both heating and cooling. And again, much more efficient, will save you a lot of money in the long term. Now, I'm not going to, again, go through the details of how it works because you can look into it on our website, the Oak Park Climate Action Network website. We have resources on all these things there. Now, these are other things you can do. You can move to an electric dryer, a heat pump electric dryer. You can move to an induction electric stovetop. You can move to an electric oven. I just got my induction stovetop, and some of you that know me know I'm not a cook, but when I do use it, it heats everything so much more quickly. It's so much more efficient. I don't have the gas coming up, which is not good for your health, by the way, in your house. There's a lot of literature out on that now. So I don't have any of that. It just heats up instantly, and I'm really glad that I did the purchase, and I got a rebate for it from ComEd, and I'll get another one from the federal government. Then, besides the big four that I just mentioned, cars, gas heaters, water heaters, stoves, there's many things others of you are working on that you can do. You can plant and nurture lots of trees and native plants. That will obviously help with flooding, cooling, and all kinds of other things. I mean, that's something you definitely want to do as much as you can. We'd love to see more native plants in Oak Park. They absorb water. They'll help keep flooding from your basement, that's for sure. And get out of your car. We were just talking about electric bikes this morning. You know, for those of us that are older and may not want to be pedaling so much on our bikes, what about an electric bike? That's a great way to get around. And there are many other ways, like public transit, like walking, that could make a big difference. That's pretty radical, but you know, walking would be a good thing. And let's think about our composting program in Oak Park. Right now, it's an opt-in program. I think that Village should turn it into an opt-out program so that you are automatically in it when you start living here, unless you opt out of it. I think we need more. Why is composting important? Because when you send organic material to the landfill, do you know what it turns into? Methane. And methane is one of the biggest polluters and causers of emission out there, 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. It doesn't stay in the atmosphere as long, but it stays in the atmosphere for a couple decades. So why do we want to send organics to landfills and produce methane when we could be composting the organics? You know, the Village has gray bins. You just put them out outside your house and dump your leaves and food scraps and whatever in there. They pick it up once a week. It's a good program. We should use it, and we should stop using plastic. You all know about plastic. I don't need to talk about that. So you may say to yourself when you hear how bad the climate crisis is, but it's just me. What can I do? You know, what can I make a difference? And of course you can. And I just want to note that the ripple effect is what we're after here. What we do individually influences our neighbors and our community, so one person's action does make a difference. And I like to quote two of my favorite people. I won't read Mother Teresa's, but I will read Margaret Mead's. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Well, that leads me to the community actions and the Oak Park Climate Action Network, which Susan was instrumental in forming about 3.5 years ago, I would say. And I joined in from the beginning. And we're a volunteer group. And what we do is advocate for change, like we advocated to create the Climate Action Plan for the Village. And we now have one that was passed. And those are the goals of Climate Ready Oak Park. And note, decrease community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 60% by 2030. That is 6 years from now. We have a lot of work to do. So that was one of the goals of Climate Ready Oak Park. And you all know this, but passing the plan isn't the end. It's step one. Then you have to implement the plan, and that means you have to put money behind the plan. So we've been advocating for ordinances and money. We're doing better with ordinances and not so well with money. What we did pass, though, is this ordinance that as of January 24, any new construction in the Village cannot have a gas hookup. All new construction must be electric. And thank you to the board for passing that ordinance. And now we have to work on existing homes, because the new homes will be all electric. And we're the first village to do this in the Midwest. So we're pretty proud of that, and we worked hard on that. And there are other advocacy efforts that I don't have time for this morning, but I do want to note that the one on banning gas-powered leaf blowers is going to go into effect. And that may seem like a small thing, but boy, you can't believe how much they emit. and how bad they are for the guys that have to use them in the landscaping companies. So it's as of 2025, right? Yeah, as of 2025, no more gas-powered leaf blowers in our village. Now, that's not a small thing. That's one important change that we have made by being a committed group of citizens working on these issues. And our newest development is what we launched a couple weeks ago, which is Community Climate Coaches. We asked the village to set up a one-stop center for coaching residents, and they haven't done it. So what we decided is, well, let's start a volunteer network of coaches, and we'll help neighbor to neighbor, we'll help people go through this process. So we launched that on the 19th of March. We've already had, up until yesterday, we had 8 people, and yesterday at the Eco Extravaganza, we probably got 10 more. So we have our first 18 people that have asked for coaching. And let me just say to you, these are the areas. They're all the areas I've been talking about, that we have coaches that will help you for free to get going, how to get started, how to insulate your home, all about heat pumps, all about electric vehicles, native gardening, all the things you might want to know about. There is a coach that has already been there and done that. And all the coaches have volunteered their time. And it's a simple thing. You just go into the website that I have there, and the link is on the table, and you say, I need a coach I'm thinking about a heat pump. I would like to talk to a coach. And you get 30 minutes of time with someone to get you started and to refer you to professionals who can do the work. And we get no payback from any of this. We're not linked up to any of the contractors. There's no money exchanged or anything. But we keep your information confidential, and then we refer you to professionals who can help you. And you just can't imagine how many people yesterday said to me, this is just what I need. We were at the Oak Park Public Library for the Eco Extravaganza, and people really were interested. It was exciting. It was great to see that they were ready to do this. And then we work with other bodies on climate practices as well. So you then need to help us spread the word. Use your voice. You all belong to other community organizations. Invite us to come and talk. Tell other people about what we're doing. Invite people to get a climate coach. It's simple. You just go to the website, you sign up, you get somebody to help you. It's a pretty good service, and the people that are doing it have been there and done that, so they can help you. So use your voice, and join OPCAN, join the Oak Park Climate Action Network. We meet once a month, Wednesday nights at 7. There's information on the website. Join us. We need more people to be bulldogs. We need that. And then, of course, I can't leave today without mentioning that this is 2024, and we have a chance to vote. And so let's vote on people that want to make change, that are not climate deniers. We have no time for them. So at all levels, vote for climate advocates. And then I'll end with this. This is one of my favorite people, Robert F. Kennedy, not the current Robert F. Kennedy. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation. And that's what I believe, and that's what moves me, because that's the earth I care about. Thank you.
We're doing a setup here that if you have time, please step by the table afterwards off to the side. It has some good materials there. Number one is a resource sheet that has links and websites for all the different organizations that are around the community here, including Oak Park Climate Action Network and many others. West Cook Wild Ones that deals with native plants. And we also have some information about the Interfaith Green Network, which our green team here is a member of, about 15 to 20 congregations in the Oak Park and River Forest area that work together and share information about what we're doing and the latest trends and so on. So there's information about that. And there's a sign-up sheet if you'd like to think about participating with the environmental justice team here at First United. There's a sign-up list there if you want more information about it, or talk to us afterwards. So please check out the table. There's a lot of good information there.
Hey, Jim?
Yes.
I just wanted to add, while Art is setting up, you know, we're really proud of our electrification ordinance.
You should come up to the mic, otherwise I'm not going to hear you.
We are really proud of our electrification ordinance at the village because we were the first in the Midwest, but we're getting a lot of attention for it. It is very likely not going to take effect because NICOR is, is it Peoples? It's NICOR. NICOR is coming after us, coming after the village in a big way. And I keep asking the people at the village when it's public, and they keep saying not yet, not yet. So that's all I'm going to say. But you can imagine we are going to spring into action when they finally make their threat public and real. But clearly, when you make big moves like this, there's going to be backlash. The city of Berkeley passed an electrification ordinance that went to the, I don't know how courts work because I'm not an attorney, but it went to like a circuit court and was struck down. So Berkeley's electrification ordinance is out. The state of Illinois has backed down on theirs. The city of Chicago is waiting until to see what happens with us. And anyway, there's repercussions, and so we're really happy that we passed it, but looking to see what's going to happen next. There's a fight ahead.
Pam, thank you so much. Pam and I worked independently on these presentations, and then when we got together, it turns out you talked about at this level, and I'm going to talk about at this level a little more granular, but we have exactly the same theme. I want to start by asking, just for a quick show of hands on some things, on all the things that Pam was talking about, but I just want to know how many of you are already doing this kind of thing. How many of you have rooftop solar on your homes? Several. Great. How many of you are subscribed to community solar? An equal number. Wow. The solar message is getting out. How many of you have a heat pump in your home?
Getting one.
There you go. Okay. How many of you have an electric water heater? There you go. Induction stove? There you go. Okay. Home composting. How many of you do the old traditional farmer type of home composting? And how many are enrolled in municipal composting? Wow, almost everyone is doing some kind of composting. How many of you are using reusable shopping bags? Wow, that's 100%, great. And how many of you are doing styrofoam recycling? How many of you have figured out that there's a way to collect your styrofoam? Great. Thank you all for doing that. It's important to do that. So one of the themes of this presentation that I want to talk about three themes, but I don't want to spend a lot of time, but I just want you to think about each of these. First of all, we're all on a journey, and those of you who raised your hands know that you kind of took the first step of doing something, and you know that there are many more steps, and the more people that start these journeys, the better. Most of you have already started that already, but I want to encourage you to continue and tell your friends and neighbors and your families how important it is to keep this concept of journey so that everyone knows that it's a sequence. It's not a one-time event. Continuing education. I didn't even know what a heat pump was 4 years ago, and I'm going to show you some websites where you can learn a whole lot of information about heat pumps because very few of us know that detail, but it's all available. And we're much more effective, as Pam said, we're much more effective in groups. So just for a quick agenda, we want to talk about what's community solar all about. learning more about electrification, more about composting, which this audience doesn't really need, and plastic bag collection and other local opportunities. So community solar, as those of you who are enrolled learned this, community solar is designed for folks who can't put solar on their roofs. When I retired, I really wanted to put solar on our roof, and I got quotes very quickly, and I was all ready, and they said, but Art, you have a clay tile roof, and we're not sure how to attach solar panels to clay tile roofs. And it's like, okay, so through a long series of discussions with roofing contractors and so forth, it didn't work. People who live in apartments, people who live in condos, people who have trees over their house, community solar is designed for them. And you can see in the first part of this slide, those are many of the people who are candidates for community solar. There are many organizations that are also qualified for community solar, small businesses. This church is a community solar subscriber, as well as individuals. And so the idea, as those of you who are subscribing know, is that somewhere in northern Illinois, there's a solar farm. It might be on the roof of a warehouse like ours is, or it might be in a farm field like many of you have. There's a solar farm that's about the size of a football field, and you have a few panels allocated to your subscription that way. And then the confusion comes, there's a double billing, because you get a bill not only from ComEd, but you do get a bill from the solar provider. The benefits for the households are you always get a roughly a 15%, some are as low as 5%, but I'll show a chart a little later that shows the exact discounts. And those of you who are already community solar people, you may have found some resources. I'm going to have some slides in a couple about additional resources so you can tell your friends and family about community solar and how great it is. The benefits for the environment are significant, and for Illinois, one of the big benefits is jobs. There's construction jobs, there's over 2,200 jobs that have been created. There are 100 solar farms. Governor Pritzker was at the dedication of the 100th solar farm last November. So there are over 100, and there's a couple of new ones every month. And so there's 9 companies active. I'll show you the names of those companies in a little bit. The benefits to the grid, if you think about the electric grid, the grid was built with power generators at the center of it. So you had a coal-fired power plant, and all the generating capacity was in localized spot. And what they're developing is a much more diffuse grid, spread over all these sources, sprinkled all around the country. And that's going to be a much more powerful and reliable grid for all of us going forward. And so it gives us the ability, it gives the power companies the ability to phase out gas and coal-fired power plants. From a customer perspective, the big thing to remember is community solar is just as reliable as existing electric supply. The downside is you will have to spend some thought process to pick a third-party provider, and there is some cycle time from the time you apply for community solar until the time you start getting billed by both ComEd and the company. So they talk in terms of billing cycles, so typically it's 2 to 6 billing cycles. And there's a little more paperwork. Up front, there's a contract to be signed, and they're required to give you a legal statement. Remember, most of these companies are newer, especially newer in Illinois. So the idea is they want you to be as confident as a consumer as you are in ComEd. And so to build confidence, that's why they do a lot of this structure up front. And typically, you'll get 2 bills per month. So this is a little complicated. Once you get used to it, it's like, sure, I understand. It's like that's how we do business. But you do need to remember that in terms of ComEd, dealing with ComEd right now, you just pick up a phone and things just kind of happen. So I want to spend a little time going to some websites, and just to walk you through some websites that I use. once you look at them, you won't need to. Yeah, oh, they are on the handout, yes. This is the, and let me stand out of the way. So this is the Citizens Utility Board website. So this is the Citizens Utility Board website. And this is really, a lot of people refer to this website for all the information about community solar. And I'm going to click on, there's a lot of educational things about how it just worked, which I summarized. And this little blue tab here, I'm not very good at this without a mouse. These are current community solar offers. And these 9 companies are all active in both northern and southern Illinois. And so you can sign up with any of these companies, and Citizens Utility Board has developed a handy chart, which I refer to quite often. And this chart really compares the offers available from all these companies. I haven't figured out yet why Citizens Utility Board doesn't list these in alphabetical order, but they don't. So we've got Nexamp here, and Nexamp is the biggest company. Their headquarters is in Boston, and they've recently said, okay, our business in Illinois and then the Midwest is big enough that we're going to have a second corporate headquarters in Chicago. So this church subscribes to Nexamp. Many of you may subscribe to Nexamp. And they have the largest market share of all the community solar providers in Illinois. So I just want to walk across this chart and talk through a little bit about, and you've got this information available on this chart for all 9 companies. So utility territory, what that means is in Illinois, in the northern area, ComEd is responsible. Ameren is responsible for central and southern Illinois. So in the beginning of community solar, some of these companies only worked in one area or the other. The next column is where some of these companies are differentiated. It's a savings against, and typically it's a savings against the supply side of your bill. If you think about your ComEd bill, it's divided into 3 parts. There's a supply part and a delivery part and taxes and fees. And most of these companies, their discount only affects the supply side. Then contract term, you see contract terms of 15 to 20 years. This is a great chart to kind of compare these companies. Citizens Utility Board recommends that you get, not quotes, but that you really study in some detail at least 3 of these companies before you select one of them. Whether they have a cancellation fee or not, they all want long-term contracts because that gives them as investors confidence that they're going to have customers over the length of the service life of the solar farm. Some of none of them have a cancellation fee anymore. Credit checks, some of them run what they call an informal credit check. It doesn't affect your credit rating. And then the billing. There's 4 ways to get additional information about any one of these companies. So one way is over here under contact. It lists both a phone number and an email address for the company. And then over here, there are 2 links in this column. So the first link will take you to Nexamp's website. The second link, Citizens Utility Board has looked at each of these companies, and they have a very detailed 2-page analysis of the particular offering by that company. So Nexamp is the biggest in the market area, and so we recommend Nexamp. Another company that's been active is Clearway. Clearway is up here, and they're a Texas company that's, again, been active in the Illinois market since the beginning. And another company that you should know about is a company called Solstice. And Solstice is a fairly new entry into the marketplace, but they emphasize a program called Solar for All. And so in the legislation that set up community solar in Illinois, there's a set-aside for low and moderate incomes. And what that means is that some of those funds cannot be spent for typical middle-class families. They've got to be spent in environmental justice areas and other areas impacted by this. So that's all set aside, and the program is called Solar for All. In there, you can get up to a 60% discount on your electric bill, as well as discounts on having solar panels on your roof, as well as discounts on a lot of things. But Solar for All is a very good program if you're income qualified. And Solstice kind of specializes in that. They do have other, if you're just a conventional community solar, they will service you, but they really want to focus on Solar for All, on that program. So that's one website to talk about. Pam spent a lot of time talking about electrification, and she spent a lot of time talking about OPCAN, so I want to show you OPCAN's website. So this is OPCAN's website, and it is, I'm not very good at scrolling without a mouse. There we go. So this is OPCAN's website. Pam showed us this, and I'm just going to drill into this a little more, and thank you to Susan and all your buddies for this organization. This website is terrific. It is I use it as one-stop shopping for a lot of this information. So here is, in terms of learning, it says, how do I electrify? And then you click on this thing that says resources. And it goes on for page after page, and I'm not going to drill down any further than this. But I want to tell you, you can just, if you have a question about heat pumps, all the stuff that Pam talked about, you can just scroll through here, talks about transportation, and this is a very nice video. Derek Eder is a guy who's very active in OPCAN, and this is about a 10-minute video. He has done what Pam is doing, okay? So he has electrified his home, he just walks you through how he did it, and it's a very casual presentation. I'd encourage each of you to just take 10 minutes and watch it. He spent, and again, Pam emphasized it beautifully. It's not like you have to replace all your appliances immediately. You want to look at the service life of that product and say, okay, my water heater, it's a new water heater, it's only 3 years old. I probably have another 10, 12 years about it, but I do want to be sure that my home is wired correctly so that so I'll be ready for that installation. And Derek walks you through a lot of that. Further on down here, there's a lot of references as I scroll through here. What is a heat pump? Learn about heat pumps, weatherization, insulation. So there's a lot of information on rooftop solar. They referred right here to the Citizens Utility Board website that we just looked at for community solar. EV, so there's a lot of information on this, and I encourage you, it's kind of a one-stop shopping for this. And another website that's very handy is the Village of Oak Park website. So this is compost. We were talking about compost, and the village program, I am not good with a mouse at all, am I? So the village, and I just want to look at a couple of these things for those of you who aren't yet enrolled in the village's program. It's really a very nice program. Pam highlighted the opportunity. It's opt-in. All of us who are enrolled kind of signed up, and we pay that on a utility bill. And an opt-in, an opt-out program would mean we're all automatically enrolled. And then it's up to us to contact the village and say, no, I don't want that option. But the usage rate would really double or maybe even triple. Right now, I think 17 is the last number I heard. 17% of Oak Park homes are in the composting program. But it's very different. There are some folks in the congregation, I've been talking to people about composting, and a number of folks around the congregation have very traditional backyard composting, and they weren't even aware of municipal composting. So it's the kind of thing that really we need to just spread the word. One of the things, come on, Art. Now I'm back in Google. Would you? Thank you. Go to the village's site, the one that we were just at. It was there. Oh, there. No, wait, that's OPCAN. And compost. There it is. Can you move your shoulder a little? And just, thank you, and just go down and open the one that says what's collected.
Oh, this thing doesn't want to scroll. That's the problem. Huh? Oh, it's one of those Apple things.
Yeah, oh.
I'm out.
Okay. Well, then I'm back, and I apologize for my clumsiness. Okay, so acceptable materials. This is a nice list of exactly what you can put in, and you can put in chicken bones and steak bones and pizza boxes and all that kind of stuff, and then items not accepted. So this is a really cool program, as those of you who are using this program know.
I just want to comment, we compost at home in the backyard, and we joined this, and you can join it with a neighbor, so you split the cost.
There you go.
Half is expensive, and we joined this, and I thought it was gonna be not very useful, but because they take meat and greasy pizza boxes and so on, we use it for that, so the vegetables and stuff is up in our backyard. Meat products.
I want to take just. It's a great program. Yeah, the idea, Dave's idea of sharing it with a neighbor is a good idea. We shared it with a neighbor when we were living in a home as well. This is one of the coolest videos, and it's only 1 minute and 30 seconds, so I thought I'd take the time to play it. If I figure out how to do it. Take another 1 minute and 30 seconds to do that. There you go.
Ship's log. Start date, Tuesday. Per Starfleet instructions, we are beaming aboard devices crucial to bringing about a recycling revolution. Acting Captain Chekhov here, inviting you to join us on this new enterprise, Oak Park's Compostable Program. This program diverts food scraps from landfills, helping reduce greenhouse gas and methane emissions. But maybe best of all, these food scraps become compost, which helps keep soil healthy, ensuring Earth remains a Class M planet. Here is how it works. After a space meal or Earth meal, instead of putting food scraps in the garbage bag, put them in a food scraps receptacle. When it's full, empty it into the 36 deciliter outdoor compost cart. You can put yard waste in it too. That means no more having to buy yard waste bags and stickers. In fact, the cost of the compostable program is nearly offset by that savings. Share the cart and cost with the neighbor, and you are in the black. So don't cling on to the old ways of recycling. Make the compostable program your prime directive.
Okay, back to PowerPoint, because I'm not very good here negotiating this, so we'll get back to PowerPoint. And what did we do? We did this. There you go. Okay, a quickie about plastic shopping bags. You can drop all your plastic shopping bags off at either Pilgrim Congregational Church down on Lake Street or Temple Har Zion on Harlem Avenue in River Forest. Both have bins near the door, and instead of taking them to Jewel, you can take them to those congregations. And there's a company called Trex that will make them into park benches. It used to be they could use 500 pounds of plastic bags to convert to a park bench. And so congregations in Oak Park have already, over the past 3 years, gotten 7 of these benches built, and they're scattered around from the Trailside Museum in River Forest to Harambee Community Garden in Austin. There's one in the closest one is in the lobby of the public library next door. But they changed their criteria, and now it takes 1,000 pounds to do it. But the congregations are very enthusiastic about continuing to collect it. If you drop off your bags at Jewel, they'll end up at the same place, but the congregations won't get credit for it. So you really need to drop them off at the congregations. And they've developed the skills of weighing all these plastic bags, because it takes about 100 bags to weigh a pound. So there's a lot of work that goes into these collections. Other things going on in April, and these are all on the handouts. And one of the handouts is this sheet, which really About 90% of this sheet came out of the Wednesday Journal. They published a directory a year or so ago of all the organizations in Oak Park that are doing community-related environmental things. And I just took it and put it on a sheet with a few more things about resources. So all these are on, and this handout is over on the table, and it lists many of these organizations. There's an organization, you will find it on this one, called West Cook Wild Ones, which has a native plant sale, and you can order through May 19th. The One Earth Film Festival, Jim is available, and he's on the board over there. And there are some local, 2 churches are sponsoring 2 films. On Thursday evening, April 18th, there's a double feature at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. And they also have an action fair there. So if you go at 5:15, you can talk to community organizations like OPCAN and get more information there. And the films themselves start at 6 o'clock. So that's on Thursday evening, April 18th. The theme of those movies is water. The next day, Friday the 19th, right across the street from here at Unity Temple at 6 o'clock, they'll have a double feature about disposability. So, and the One Earth Film Festival, as it says on the screen there, they have showings throughout the week of Earth Week. Paper shredding at the Village Public Works on South Boulevard. They're going to be doing both paper shredding and styrofoam collection. There's a cleanup in Columbus Park on the same day. Next week, a week from today, at Fair Oaks Presbyterian Church, a little bit north of here, they will have a program on Environmental Justice 101. That's an adult education program just like this. And when I talked to Linda Martins this week, she said, be sure to invite anybody you talk to who wants to go. It's at 9 o'clock at Fair Oaks. And I do want to mention another organization called Go Plastic Free. They work very hard on very practical ways of reducing plastic in our lives. So, those themes that we talked about, continuing education is critical. And I hope by showing the OPCAN website and those other websites, you've got some sources for continuing education that we're all going to need. We are much more effective in community. And so we've talked about joining organizations. The environmental justice team here at First United can always use more enthusiasm. There's all kinds of organizations around town, and many of them are listed on this handout. And remember, it's a sustainability journey. So the Village of Oak Park is doing a nice job, and this is a handout, and there are 3 slightly different handouts. The Village of Oak Park came out with this. These are the top 5 actions for homeowners. And there's another one over there on the table that's the top 5 actions for apartment residents. And there's another one that's the top 5 actions for condo owners. So they've really thought about this and said, what can I do as an individual? So the number 1 and number 2 on each of these cards has something to do with either solar or electrification. So those are the 2 big themes that are consistent. Whether you're a homeowner or wherever you live, I hope you take away from this presentation, I gotta work on solar and I need to think about electrification. And then the other 3 here for the homeowners, convert your lawn to native plants, travel clean, how can you, with all the ways of travel, and compost. So those are all things that we know about, but the village has nicely summarized them. Thank you. Questions for me or for Pam or for Jim?
Styrofoam. We're supposed to wait 1 day a month and dump rid of all our styrofoam.
There are 2 styrofoam. Question is, what do we do about styrofoam? There has been a program in Western Springs for 4 or 5 years now, I think, where on the first Saturday of every month, the Western Springs Congregational Church manages the program. They work with a company called Dart Industries, and from 9 to 12, every first Saturday of every month, you can drive to the parking lot of it's the Western Springs Theater, right in that area down near the railroad tracks in Western Springs. And so you can save up Hilda Fisher who's a member of this congregation, collects her styrofoam, and I go over to her house and pick it up and take it over there from our condo. Our condo has a collection site in the basement. The village has started it. This is the second styrofoam that I'm aware of in the Public Works, and so you can just take it over to the Public Works on April 20th. Does that answer your question? Yeah. It goes back to Dart Industries. And Dart Industries, their product is styrofoam, and so they make it into anything that can be extruded, basically. So they do a lot of corner moldings. They do extruded things like pens. So they make product out of it. They don't use soft styrofoam, like wrapping bubbles and peanuts for packing. They can't use that. They can only use solid styrofoam. But the number one thing is avoid styrofoam wherever possible. Right. So you don't want to get styrofoam, but it's in our society. And so if you end up with styrofoam, then put it someplace where it can be reused.
And let me just add that there's a bill before the legislature to try to ban styrofoam in our state. And so keep your eye on the General Assembly, because when the bill, and I don't know how far the bill has gotten because I haven't followed that one, but I know that there's a major effort to ban styrofoam right now here. Yeah, it's banned here. But the restaurants are ignoring it, and it's not banned in the state yet.
Janet.
Did you tape this?
Yes.
Okay, because I live in a condo building where the gas is free, so everybody gets gas. You know, of course, it's not free, it's in your monthly assessment. But, you know, when people, and we have people in our building who are very keen on doing this, but I think your presentation is what we need first, because people have to see the bigger picture, you know, for us anyway. And our president got rid of his gas stove, but he gave it to somebody else in the building who had a need for it, and so, but he really wanted us to put in, you know, one of the charger systems. But we have a very tight little building. We don't have a big basement. We have nothing. And so really people were really turned off to that, although it's a wonderful idea. So I think we need to see the bigger picture that you presented.
I'm happy to come and present.
Okay, I'll see if I can get people together.
Yeah.
Recording's on the church YouTube.
Pardon?
The recording is on the YouTube.
Oh, is it on YouTube? Oh,
YouTube,
perfect, okay.
the church's YouTube
Okay, great.
station.
Debbie.
Question about community solar. When we signed up, they allotted us a certain amount based on what our electric usage had been. What happens if people start to electrify and they need a lot more solar? How do you do that?
The question is, your initial community solar subscription may end up only covering a fraction of your use, maybe 80% or 50% or 95%, or Paul just had to leave the room, but I know Paul's coverage is 103%. So sometimes they allocate just about the right amount. If they allocated a little less, or if you have a lot more need they will make adjustments. Capacity has been an issue in the community solar, so you might have to call them several times and say, hey, I need capacity, and they might say, it might take as long to get the extra capacity as it did to get initially enrolled, but they are aware of that issue. Did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Now that I'm having a heat pump put in, I'm going to call them early and let them know. Then they will. Mm-hmm.
Is there a community wind program?
I don't think so. I'm not aware. Are you
Dave's
aware
question, is there a community wind program? And neither of us is aware of that.
I could just say briefly, the wind systems tend to be utility scale. Community solar tends to be 1 or 2 football fields in size. The wind, you see the wind farms when you travel around, they're thousands
Massive.
of acres, they tend to go into the grid and
Yeah.
as a utility scale. What would be my
A windmill?
What a concept.
Wow.
When you have community solar, are there little wires that go from the panel to your residence? How does it get delivered?
They do it with calculation. They don't, let's say there's 2,000 panels in a farm, and Cher and I are allocated 5 of those panels. And all they do is they take, and 5 is a fraction of 2,000, and they take that percentage and use that. So they don't do, the electrons that come off those panels are not the same electrons that are going to get delivered to your house. Because they just pump electrons onto the grid, and you remove electrons to the grid. Oh yeah. That's that has been one of the problems, is how do they get interconnected to the grid? But that they seem to have solved that problem recently. I'll let you.
We've actually been having some
The
people
question
join.
is, do you have to be a resident of Oak Park to work with OPCAN?
We've had some people sitting in recently that are not from Oak Park, and so where are you from? Oh yeah, well, why don't you just join in? And anybody can.
Yeah, I don't know about community solar. I know Michigan just has some legislation that they're just getting started in community solar. I'm not aware of Ohio. They've had a lot of scandals in their utility providers, as you may know. So I don't think Ohio does, but you could check into it.
Good morning, my name's Peter Case. My question circles back to the composting. What are the hurdles for the opt-in? So what's preventing us, or the village, from having an opt-out?
An opt-out? Well, I guess you'd have to ask our trustee. I think that we need to advocate for it.
So is it just potentially a matter of proposing a bill?
It's not. Yeah.
There's a real appreciation, I think, at the board level of, there's a real appreciation at the board level of adding more required fees to people in the village. So there's always the balance. This board is particularly concerned about low-income residents. It's $15 a month, right? We share with our neighbors, so that's not insignificant at all. In fact, we would probably be highly criticized to require $15 a month increase. That's a huge increase for low-income houses. So I do think we need to work, because a lot of people are sharing. The bins are huge. Nobody's filling them up. So no single household. So I think that stuff needs to be worked out, but it's on the Environmental and Energy Commission's action plan. I'm pretty sure they're going to be addressing it this year. But so those kinks do need to be addressed.
Is there concern if it becomes opt-out rather than opt-in, that people won't be aware of what they can and can't put in, and you're going to suddenly have lots of regular garbage ending up in the compost?
I haven't heard that. I think it's more the cost. I mean, if it were free, then we'd be doing it. So we need to figure that out and prioritize it on the village level. I think some other things have been higher in priorities, like rebates for energy efficiency to low-income houses, which is another program, low-income homeowners and renters.
I think Dave is right, because they adjusted the rules for composting already about what can go in there, and they tightened it up because people were not following the rules, and we're the people willing to pay for the program and are invested in the program, and it still wasn't being done right. And then you have to throw out big batches of compostable stuff because it's got the wrong items in it.
So Debbie's comment is that even in the existing compost program, one of the problems is that they call it, I think, contamination. People put the wrong type of items in a compost bin as opposed to a recycling bin, and that continues to be a problem, and Debbie just wanted to point that out. Go ahead.
Make the comment that they should somehow go through the schools, because people my age sit there trying to figure out all those rules. The kids that go to the grade schools around here, from kindergarten on, take their lunch things and, they know just what bins to put it in and do it without thinking. So if they would, kind of work their way in through the school kids, or the families that have school kids, that'd get it started, and then the rest of us could learn from them.
You're right. The school population is a great opportunity to get the education going. One of the things, and I'll just close with this, one of the things about composting that I just discovered, it's been a continuing concern in Oak Park that units, residences, buildings over 5 units they don't participate in any of the village's municipal garbage collection. And as a result of Carol's husband, actually, Dave Goulias, found a service that does collection of compost at these buildings. And so for those of you who are condo residents, see me or see Jim, and we have the name now of a company that will do compost pickup at your buildings. So Waste Not, thank you. And if you just do wastenot.com, they're down in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been great. We're so glad you've been here. Remember that, before we clap for the group again, remember that next Sunday we go back to the 9:45 start time, not the 9:30 start time. But once again, thanks to Pam, to Art, to Jim, and to thanks to you, Pete, for filming these to put them on YouTube. It's been a great series.